Hello, humane marketers. Sarah Znekrocha here. Welcome to another episode of the Humane Marketing Podcast, a place to be for the generation of marketers who cares. This is the show where we talk about marketing your business in a way that feels good to you, is aligned with your values, and also resonates more with your conscious customers because it's not pushy, ethical, and also beautiful. So if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of humane marketing. And if you're new here and this is your first time, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. You may want to download your one-page marketing plan with the 7 Ps of humane marketing in the form of a mandala at humane.marketing/one page, the number one and page. So again, humane.marketing/one page. And with that, with no further ado, let's dive into today's conversation. Hey, Marc, so good to see you again. We already had a good laugh off recording, so I'm sure this is going to be a fun and hopefully also inspiring conversation for people listening. Welcome to the Humane Marketing Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a delight. Always a delight talking to you. And like Rachel, shout out to Rachel if she's listening, because she's the one who introduced you to me. Right, the other way around. And I really, she told me like, oh, every time I talk to Marc, it's like blows my mind. I'm like, oh, cool, I want to talk to him. So we did, and now here we are talking about AI and human, and whether that, there's anything ethical about that. So yeah, let's dive right in if you're open to that.
Yeah, I suppose probably the first place to start is kind of what really the moment of realization for me that we needed to start having deeper conversations about it. I think I ended up in Silicon Valley maybe 11 years ago at a place called Singularity University, which was a place that teaches people about all of the crazy technology that's now arriving and the fact that it was going to arrive far faster than we realize. And so I learned about all of these crazy, fabulous, amazing tools. And it blew my mind. As we it took me 7 days to get to sleep again after kind of hearing about the craziness that's arriving. And I was getting the plane home, and I stayed in San Francisco the night before after doing it. I was, I think, walking past the Twitter head office and or near in that area, and I just was thinking that there were tens of millions of dollars being raised to deliver food to that building 10 minutes faster or 3 minutes faster or something like that. But meanwhile, there were people homeless outside with drug addiction and things like that. And I started to really question, and this is at the forefront of innovation and technology and things like that. And yet, and all of this money going into stuff, but right outside, there was stuff that really mattered that was being left behind. And so I think for the past decade, a lot of my focus has really been around how do we bring together this very kind of human world with this extraordinarily incredible possibility in a way that we don't get some of the unintended consequences of our actions, and how does governance itself how do we regulate all of that, and how do we realize that the solutions may be arriving in different silos to the ones where we're currently managing for them. And there's some very, very smart people doing some unwise things in the world, and so in this world of artificial intelligence, there's a deeper call for artificial wisdom, maybe, or a birth of wisdom. And so, a lot of my work in the last decade is really about, the intersection of where humanity meets technology, and this idea of something new feels like it's being born, and many of our old systems are collapsing under the scaling complexity of the era we're in, and deep down we all feel like something isn't right. And I used to be a marketer myself. I know this is a marketing community, and a direct marketer, really focused on data-driven insight and conversion and all the kind of standard marketing stuff. But essentially underneath it all, we were kind of using people's subconscious drivers and fears to manipulate them into our desired outcomes. And I started to realize, well, you add AI to that, and infinite power and superhuman persuasion. And at the time, 11 years ago, I saw things like Cambridge Analytica. I saw things like Trumpism arriving before Trump even arrived. And I mean, ultimately, that's the whole world trying to manipulate other people to do what they want to do rather than what is in our individual best interests. Be it, the amount of time we're on screen time, having all these amazing behavioral scientists and neuroscientists leveraging ever more powerful tools to get it to do things that aren't necessarily thriving, be it the newspapers pulling us in with huge headlines or clickbait, or all of this kind of thing. And so I felt that my own gifts were part of the problem when I started to think about the amplification of what I know. So in many ways, I started to move away from manipulating others into empowering others to be in their own wisdom and to do things in their individual and collective best interests. And then how do you actually build a mode of governing ourselves from that place? So, I'm 10, 11 years into that process, and I probably have more questions than answers. But these are incredible, amazing tools. But do we have the wisdom to use them wisely?
Yeah. I think that really is the big question, right? Because like you, I'm fascinated by the intersection of the human versus the artificial intelligence. And people are sometimes quite surprised because I talk about all things human, marketing like we're human, selling like we're human. I'm writing my third book, business like we're human. And yet, to me, artificial intelligence is an integral part of that new paradigm that I love to talk about, because in my view, it actually helps us to be, or to go back to be more human. And so I guess I would like to have your perspective on that as well, because right now there's two opinions. The one that says, well, AI or ChatGPT in marketing is just there to dehumanize everything, and it dehumanizes the interactions, and it dehumanizes the messages. So is that true, or is there another way to use AI to actually, make that humanness come out in a different way?
So it's all about intention for me. Like the same tool used with misaligned intention can deliver vastly different outcomes. And so it's not really the tool that's the problem. So if I'm using AI to create more time that I can spend time with another human being in deep care and deep love, then that is a tool being used to support my humanness, just like Zoom is being used right now to have this conversation. It's like, no one says this is an artificial conversation because we brought two humans together that otherwise wouldn't have the time to be able to reach each other.
Right.
And so, like all things, it can be used to separate or to connect. It can, and really it's around what is the intention that these tools are being used for. So, say we've got airline here in my community. It's under lots of stuff is kind of breaking because planes are not going right, and the customer service is really bad because they can't scale to a crisis. And so you couldn't employ enough humans to be human, right? And well, actually, if you've got systems that can expand and scale and communicate in a human-like way that can support people when they need it in an emergency, when you can't provide humans, and the current alternative is to be a robot and not available, then and people being struggling at airports and all of this kind of stuff, and in crisis and not knowing what to do and all of this kind of stuff. But if you've got an intelligent system that can solve every problem, rather than if you press button 5 and then button 3 and then button 2, you can solve this particular problem, which isn't the problem I'm really wanting. There are some, it's an act of care to provide a tool that meets people's needs. It's an act of love to design a system that cares, even though you're using technology. And so, so for me, I have this, I'm a huge proponent of using systems from a place of love, care, and connection. And, AI is like magic if used in the right way with the right kind of emotion.
Yeah, it leads me automatically to the next question, which is, well, are humans ready for that tool? Because if we're saying it's a great tool with the right intention, then maybe what we need to work on is the intention, because
Totally.
the tool is already smart enough. So it's the intention that we actually need to work on. And so how do we work on that? How do we get humans ready to use the tool with the right intention?
Well, it's not only using it, but it's also about how susceptible are you to manipulation. So like if you have loads of subconscious fears or stories and things like that, it opens you up to people using superhuman persuasion to if you have a fear of death, you're much more likely to be sold health products and all this kind of stuff. So in many ways, that the inoculation is, what I always say, you should actually teach kids about marketing and behavioral science, not because to get them to manipulate other people with it, is so that they become more aware of what's driving the bus when most messaging is subconscious. And so there's this, I think most of us have been through that aging process where we get wiser as we get older, and and that's kind of the shift in consciousness we go through as we evolve during our lives, and humanity has to go through a real shift for it to be able to build systems in a way that don't have those consequences. So you look at something like Facebook or smartphones and things like that, we can see all around us that this death of 1,000 cuts has happened, where everybody's just living in this kind of screen. Like every single one of the thousands and thousands of decisions that went into that was probably made sense logically and smartly, but somehow we've ended up in a place where we're all in the same room but disconnected from each other. And so it's like, we've accidentally lost ourselves. And we can see that with climate change, or like with something like that. Like, can you really solve a problem like climate change without understanding that overconsumption is maybe a self-worth issue? Like, am I enough? Or do I need more to be someone? And recognizing that these tools are manipulating that sense of not enough. And then how do you market and pay a bill when your whole business model requires people to consume more, even though it may not be in their best interest? And so that interesting gap between wants and needs, and how do we get technology to support us with what we really need, rather than what we can be manipulated into wanting. And I kind of always look at how billionaires operate themselves. Like a lot of them have an amazing assistant that is like the world's best ad blocker. You know what I mean? They don't really need to use the internet themselves or anything like that, because it can all be facilitated. And so we kind of, need to look at those kind of tools and stuff that we can build, which are, the wise owl that sits on people's shoulder and supports people to choose their higher selves in moments of kind of manipulation. So I think it's an extraordinarily interesting time to be a builder that cares. And I think there's never been a better time to develop kind of technology with wisdom, and technology that can bring us together, and technology that can create magic and wonder and all of these kind of things. But also there's never been a better time to create lots of unintended consequences.
I think that's the issue that I have, is that we don't have enough examples of good people using AI right now. And that's why there's so much fear, because people look at the not so good examples. The LinkedIn bots putting, AI chat GPT messages and spamming people and things like that. And so they're like, you see, that's what AI is going to do. It's going to dehumanize everything, because the good people, I'm just putting the two of us in the good people side, there's not enough.
You haven't seen me on a bad day.
But I'm just saying there's not enough people who talk about doing business for good, who are also saying, yeah, but AI can be actually really good if we use it with the right intention. That's
so a LinkedIn
what I'm
bot,
seeing.
So a LinkedIn bot, I'm like, why wouldn't you use a LinkedIn bot to spread delight and wonder and mischief? I was thinking about developing a belly laugh app the other day, just to send belly laughs to people and things like that.
You'd be really good at that, yeah. Record yours.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, why wouldn't you automate something that would bring joy, laughter, and kindness? So, I think a friend of mine, Nipun Mehta, who does a lot of stuff around AI and wisdom, highly recommended stuff. And he's like, what about the 7 viral virtues, and how do you actually get technologies to support the virality? Again, it's like, I love the idea of a LinkedIn bot that just makes people laugh, and it's about value, right? You see a lot of these LinkedIn bots, and it's all about what can I get, and then some of the times it's a bit lazy, and it's like, look, literally, it's like, I'm a human being. Why would I even respond to that? It's not even clever.
Exactly.
It's not even
well,
smart.
That's what I mean by bad examples, right?
But it doesn't mean you can't use the same technology and genuinely be clever and funny, and but humor is my brand essence and things like that, mischief and playfulness. I'm not going to design something using these tools. I'm not afraid of using these tools, but I would use them that really spread the essence of me, to find that kind of deep resonance with other people. But you've also got to say, well, look, if everybody used those tools, which is increasingly getting easier and easier to do, we just break every social platform because there's so much noise. Like, the information overload right now is getting exponentially worse. And so, to even get connection, the depth of connection that has two people trust each other enough to work together, that isn't going to come from the scaling the shallow, right? There's a reason why I kind of wrote a book on having coffee and teaching people to have coffee, was, I think, in a world of ever increasing shallowness and scale, the ability to go deeper and is kind of the social network masterclass. So, I've had 10,000 coffees in the last decade, because I didn't think the other stuff would work that well, as the noise, because everyone's like me with all this technology and amplifying the need for attention, when and what we really want is the need for connection. And then if you start with the premise on, okay, how do we use technology to support depth and trust and emotional connection, I think we build very different things.
That's the
and the idea is,
paradox for me. That really is the paradox, and that's why I believe that AI is actually helping us to create more spaciousness, to have time for those coffee chats. Because right now people don't have the time. They're like, I don't have the time to talk to someone for 45 minutes. I have all these things to do. We have all this busy work that we keep doing, especially as entrepreneurs. Often it's not even paid work, right? It's just like all these marketing messages and content plans and all of these things. And that's where AI is actually really good at helping us create that, if we even need to create that. I'm all about questioning our assumptions as well. Like, do we even need to create all of that fluff?
No.
So yeah, people want depth more, right? And so that's what AI helps us create, is more spaciousness to then spend time on 1,000 coffee chats. And that's where the humanness comes back.
And we've also got to realize that, the world we're moving into is very different. The idea of free intelligence, free energy, free labor, and like making money is something, capitalism itself starts to break down in the next decade or two as a result of, if you draw the line of where all of this is going, because we're automating parts of our process today, but you add a humanoid robot to that kind of thing, and like everything can be done, all needs can be provided and things like that with that kind of technology that's arriving. And so it's like, what are we selling when there's nothing to sell? And how do we have no needs that can't be met by the robots and the AIs and all of that, and the free energy around us, right? And so
that's huge. Like, what do we need to sell anymore?
Like,
There's
and
no need.
how do we find meaning in that process? Which I'm kind of, the global conversation around meaning is around me since that Ikigai diagram went around the world and things like that are responsible. There's a crisis of meaning happening in the world right now, in many age groups, as people are trying to reconcile where do they fit in, as the world is changing very rapidly and the old stories of who we are moving in. And so how do you find intrinsic motivation to, when your old identities kind of dissolve, because we are more than our jobs or who we are. We're something deeper. But that process of discovery of who we are, and what we find joy in, when the workplace is going to radically change, it is changing, and how do we it's just like it's a very kind of strange time to be alive. We're all kind of going through a process of death and rebirth, whether we like it or not. and it's like the need for attention to pay the bills is a kind of temporary state that I think we'll have to raise questions about whether we need to do that anymore. And I always kind of say to my wife, and it's like, when the robots come out, our marriage is what's left. So let's work on that bit, rather than understanding the importance of all of these tasks that need to be done in everyday family life. And likewise, when the robots come and who you are as an AI comes, who you are as what's left after all of this stuff is done. And like, what would you do when nobody is looking, just for the sake of the joy of doing it?
That's really interesting, because in this new book, Business Like We're Human, I basically feel that we have to work on our relationship with work right now. I think that is, for the next 5 or so years, that is our main thing, because also of what's going to come, but for me also because if we want to run businesses like we're human, well, right now we're working all the time, and that's not human or humane. But then also to to tie it back into the climate crisis and all these other crises we have right now, we cannot solve those if we're constantly working to pay our bills. So we need to free our time for creative thinking, for just, being human again, so that we can tackle those. And probably AI will help us with that as well. But I do believe that as humans, we need to redefine who we are when we're not working. That is kind of like the question of the decade, I feel like. Like, who are we if we're not working, if we're not defined by our work? Because I didn't take it as far as the robots coming, but yeah, that's where we're going, right?
Yeah, well,
Whether it's robots or AI or whatever it is.
yeah, and it's like, what painting do we paint with that?
Yeah.
We've kind of have grown up with many kind of dystopian views of what the world can be with that, and I'm more hopeful than that, but also recognizing that in business terms, I think about capital flows during that kind of period, and if we think about, say the Holy Grail is in 10, 20 years or whatever, or 30 years, depending on your understanding of 40, 50, 100 years or whatever. And you say, okay, like how much money needs to flow to create a world of human thriving within planetary boundaries? So the energy system needs to change, the health system needs to change, all of these kind of things. And so huge amounts of money needs to move to facilitate that transformation. So I don't really, like, we need money to end money, I kind of always say. And it's like, I think it requires the best marketers, the best businesses, to to shift all of the resources from this kind of extractive deficit based world that's around human coping, to this regenerative asset based world around human thriving that will unlock more wealth than we can ever imagine, to the point that wealth becomes pointless. So I don't really necessarily think it's an either or thing. It's not something we need to create time with our jobs to then have something else. I think we'll see exploding industries and businesses that come from people who care, that want to build something human with all these great tools, that actually are unafraid to make money in the process of doing it, because they're willing to inspire people to be hopeful and to move to another world. And you see all sorts of brands starting to emerge that attract lots of resources, because it's not an either or thing. Like this, but it's messy, going from caterpillar to butterfly, and I don't necessarily have all the answers myself, but I don't think, the idea, I think there'll be an explosion of wealth, but because we have all of these machines of potential, and we'll be able to create more circular ways of doing things, more regenerative ways of doing things, and really well people are better, and people who are below the poverty line, create income and money for businesses, and you get a load of struggling people behind the poverty line. That's not good for anyone. Or people with chronic disease, or all of these kind of things. That's not good for anyone. And I think once we start lining up kind of these entrepreneurial desires with what the world really needs and what we all need, and we get into creating a much, much bigger pie for everyone, then we'll all do much better than we did before, monetarily as well as and these tools can help us do that, but we need to all kind of learn to align with our own best interests and humanity's best interests are. But part of that is, how do we learn to get along enough to find out enough about each other to be able to collaborate, to find out what really matters to us individually and collectively. And I think we're struggling as a human race with that right now.
Yeah, that's the main thing. It's like, yeah, the outer stuff is all lining up for us, but are we ready in terms of the inner job? Are we doing our inner job? And
I mean, like, I can't even create agreement in my own family. How do you create agreement in the world? And it's like, man, this feels like the tension, right? It's like we have all of this limitless possibility arriving, but can we get out of our own way? to um, manifest it. And I think this is the real role that marketers play, which is telling these really positive, hopeful stories that not just for people to consume, but to inspire people, to be their best selves and to create the thing that they're born to create, and to be okay to do that imperfectly and and in a human way, and to create that kind of viral deep connection that comes with people being alive.
Yeah, I love that. That's kind of a good place to come full circle. I love how you did that. It's like, oh yeah, it's all about the marketers, which of course everybody's a marketer.
I did start off as a marketer. So yeah, I can spin a story. I can't do much, but spinning a story is.
That's great. No, exactly, and I think that's really what we're working on is like, marketing has been taught as an outside job for so many years. What I'm trying to do with humane marketing, and some friends and colleagues are, they're calling it differently, conscious marketing, Claudia and other people. It's like, well, what if we start from the inside? What if marketer is actually a healer, right? That's what this is about. And it's you can call it a marketer, or you can whatever, facilitator, whatever it is, right? If more people heal themselves and then help others heal, that's the
yeah. I mean, I tend to, because I work right across community, and I knew the language of consciousness and healing and stuff really resonates and connects with a certain part of society, and be it whatever stage in kind of the adoption curve that is, or that's rapidly changing. But to me, it's just good marketing. Like, let's not cloud it with its own form of words and bureaucracy and stuff like that. It's like, the whole point of marketing is to emotionally connect with people to create a mutually beneficial outcome, right? And that's just good marketing. Let's not dress it up, and like we're just learning in this era that there are ways of marketing better, and deep connection and trust is one of the core aspects of marketing for as long as I've known it. And it's just like we're learning our craft collectively, and we're getting better at doing that. And let's not see it as something else or them and us. It's just good marketing.
Yeah, that's really good. I always ask, now that I'm working on this book, the final question is like, what does business like we're human mean to you? Like, when you hear this term, business like we're human, what comes up for you? Like, what does that make you think of?
Yeah, for me, it's like this idea of mutual exchange. I think in the whole consciousness community, there's a lot of fear of receiving, I think. And I kind of always have these visions of like kind of the Italian markets and things like that, where there's this great flow of abundance and handing over the money and fruit and beautiful stuff coming the other way, and there's all this kind of love and conversation and things like that. And so but there's still trade, because it's a pain in the ass to do barter. It's exhausting to like find the right person who's got the bits. So there's something magical in, as a technology, commerce itself that allows previously impossible exchanges to take place. And I think there's beauty in that. But the market was a place of conversation and connection and wonder and beauty and care. And that to me, and it can take all forms, but the essence of that it's something done together from a place of, but there's still this kind of exchange going on. for what that means in a modern context. It's not sitting at home pressing one click on Amazon, watching Netflix for 3 hours a night, not speaking to anyone, not going anywhere. That to me isn't human business. It's business, but
it's also it's like buying from not a human, but this giant megaliths of company, right? Where on the market you see the person that you're buying from, so you like there's this establishment of trust as well.
But it's not to say that I haven't had amazing things from Amazon or amazing things from Netflix, and that there isn't art and wonder and love that's been put into all of these things. And we've just got to hold it lightly and say, well, okay, how do we just tweak these things a little and be a little wiser about how we're using them, and then try and build these systems in a way that bring us together rather than drive us apart. And I think that will be good for business. Maybe if Netflix becomes the world's greatest party planner or something, that brings people together. I'd pay a subscription for that. Took all the effort about meeting and Amazon was creating pop-up markets all over the world to create kind of wonder. I think these things will end up being massive businesses that will create more commerce than the current kind of disconnected way of doing things. And it's just these are really complex problems. Is working globally, but bringing us all back to each other. Whereas I think globalization has driven a lot of convenience, but it's also driven a lot of disconnection. And I think the businesses of the future will be much more fractal, that allow us to be human and in villages and at Dunbar kind of scale of connection, but still provide us with that kind of convenience and wonder. But I think that's where things like AI are really interesting, because they can hold all that complexity that our kind of hunter-gatherer and localized minds can't hold. And when those two things work in unison, that work in our individual and collective best interests, then I think we'll create wonderful, inspiring, connecting businesses that will not be the same as the Italian markets that drove that, but will be even better.
Even better. Okay.
Even better.
I don't know about that one.
Well, what if that was possible? How magical would the world be? And so, I like to see the.
I like your optimism. Yeah.
Well, as I say to my dystopian friends, the day we all die, at least I would have enjoyed myself on the way there.
Yeah.
What's the downside for hope, right? That's the. And so, yeah, I'd like to think we could live in the world where the wonders of the past and the wonders of the future meet together to create something better than we can even imagine today. I don't think we have a choice.
No. Yeah, we don't want to be stuck where we are. So
well, we can't unify unless we honor the past and bring forward the magic of the future, and do it in a way that honors us all, in a way that inspires us all and connects us all. I don't think we have a choice about that, because everything else leads to huge kind of dissatisfaction and disconnection of one society, part of society, over another. So it's a time for the hopeful Imagineers to that COVID phrase, build back better. I don't think we, and this is about society turning from a caterpillar into a butterfly, and we're in the messy bit. It's hard for a caterpillar to see what a butterfly looks like from that perspective, right? So it's hard to imagine from where we are going into the liquidation that there could be a beautiful butterfly at the other side of this. I don't want to spend hours and hours of my life fearing for the future. I want to be part of building the butterfly, and not to say I don't spend hours and hours of my life fearing for the future, but when I remember that's pretty pointless, I get back to the everyday wonder of spending time with amazing people building amazing things, as you do, right? And that's always what turns me to hope, is when I'm in a conversation with someone like you, realizing that there are people like you all over the world in all sorts of different ways doing amazing things, and that whilst it's not always easy to see on the news feeds and the social media feeds, like if you spend enough time out in the world, you can
Meet
feel
them
that.
all over
You
the
can
place.
feel it all over every day. And whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed by the future, I just go and have coffee with someone wonderful, and it reminds me that I'm not alone in this story. And there are people building technology from care. There are people bringing the markets back. There are people like doing all sorts of, but with thumb up machines and, and all of these kind of other bits and pieces that will that we'll find our way. Hopefully,
Yeah,
we're just a little lost right now.
yeah. Well, I definitely want to talk again to you, because every time I speak to you, it's like, oh, you see, there's so much. No, I'm usually a very optimistic person as well, and I surround myself by content and ideas and inspiration. But talking to you, it just confirms all of that. It's like, that's exactly what I'm working towards. So it's been a delight to refresh my memory with your wisdom. So thanks so much for
As I said, you
coming onto the
spend a
show.
day with me when I'm in family life, you'll see I'm not that wise.
Yeah, we all, we all have
like,
days.
there's no pedestal here. I spent time thinking and feeling about certain things. I have some gifts, but I also have many weaknesses, and so I don't want to cover this space. I'm good, and this is my gift. But please don't get the wrong idea that I don't spend lots of time in my struggle as well.
How British of you to be so humble.
Self-deprecating, I think it's
Yeah, even worse.
It's a culture of birching ourselves.
Yeah. And I'll just have to mention that I'll have to use the best AI possible out there to clean up the audio from all the mic sounds and stuff.
Really? And I think
We'll
that's
do our best. I hope it wasn't too terrible to listen to it.
Yeah, and the builders started hammering halfway through as well, like that. But I think that's the magic. Although I invite you to put out an imperfect live offering that shows the humanness of
Yeah,
this
we'll do a mix of humanness and AI.
We can't, polishing everything also loses some of its magic. So
it's like romantic almost.
Yeah, so like as long as you put a good story on it, it's fine.
Good. Well, delightful to hang out with you, Marc. Thanks so much for being here.
Take care.
Thanks so much for watching and being part of a generation of marketers who cares for yourself, for your clients, and for the planet. We really are change makers before we are marketers. So go ahead, be the change you want to see in the world. And I hope to see you again next week. Take care.